Tamea Ryan, and today I'm excited to dive into a story of passion, perseverance, and breaking barriers in the entertainment industry. The guest today is Deonte Bolden, and he's an award winning playwright, filmmaker, author, and the creative force behind Differently Abled the musical. So, thank you, Deonte, for joining today. I'm excited to talk to you about all that you have going on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be on your platform to talk about my creative process.
Yes. So I like to always just ask guests to just kind of dive in. And do you mind just sharing a little bit about your journey? I know it began back in Virginia with talent shows. Can you
Yeah.
kind of take us through your journey?
Yes. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., DMV area. It's the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area, but I was raised in Northern Virginia. And I grew up in a single family home. My mom and dad divorced when I was 4 years old. And my mom had two children. Me, I'm the youngest, but then I had an older brother. He had special needs. He had muscular dystrophy. And it was a difficult time, growing up and having a brother with special needs. But part of me tapping into my creativity was really finding an imaginary space outside of, a lot of the teasing and bullying that I saw my brother experience being special needs, but also learning how to cope with a brother who had special needs because many kids had siblings that they would go out and play with, but I had to be the big brother to my big brother. But he passed in 2006, and it was a really difficult time for me. Dealt with depression, but I tapped back into more of my creative writing process to really, express myself during that challenging time period of my life. I decided I wanted to really get more into it after my brother passed because part of his passing taught me that life is short and that you have
Hmm.
to really, live life to the fullest because tomorrow is not promised. So I moved to Los Angeles. I got into the acting bug and kind of got away from the writing process, but it wasn't until I was on a set with a director and it was like, I see that you have a lot of creative ideas and you really need to push this. So that got me into writing scripts. And really getting tapping more into my creative process. And here I am, now I've written two stage productions. One of
Wow.
my first musical that's coming up, I actually have a film that won an award earlier this year called The Skin I'm In. And I just really been grinding ever since. So,
Wow, that is just amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that story with us because I know that creativity, especially for a lot of artists, writers, really that phrase turning pain into a purpose,
mm,
that really resonates with your story.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the script writing process for you? Because I know a lot of people like they want to get into writing scripts. And can you talk about what that looks like?
Yeah, script writing it's a different thing. I always give advice because I actually coach a couple of upcoming, filmmakers and writers as well, as to really understand, the message that you want to get out. That's for me the biggest thing because you can write anything, but what's the message? What are people going to gain from it? And part of the script writing process is really once you get the message, then you start to understand the characters that are going to be attached to that message and how they're going to learn that message in different aspects. And then it starts with once you have the characters, it flows with where they are and how they're going to gain because every character has a want in the story, right? When
Mhm.
you see some of the greatest films, everybody in there has a want and a need that they need from, that specific scene or that story. And then you just really just trust the process and you write. A lot of times people sit down on ideas because they're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to write and I get stuck, and sometimes you just really have to do it and be creative in the process. But if you have great dynamic characters and you have a brilliant story, then that will just really help you to flow during your writing process. I actually wrote the musical that I'm doing now. It was actually a book. The book took me a week to write, but the script took
Wow.
me a month because it was just such a beautiful story, the characters and everything. And when you're passionate about something, that creativity just flows. You just really have to trust the process.
It's like you couldn't put it down. If you writing
I
a book in a
couldn't.
week and
Yes,
a script
I
in a
couldn't.
month.
Yeah, when you really when I get into something, I think a lot about it. I dream about it. I, have, notes beside my bed, like a notebook. And, really, I would say also to people who want to write, trust your creative ideas and, make them a priority, write it down. Because sometimes we'll think of something, and I do that sometimes at work. And I'll be like, oh my God, it's a
Mhm.
brilliant idea. I'm going to make sure I go home and write it down. By the time I get home, I forget it. So I always have like a notepad on my phone and just write those creative ideas. 'Cause, we'll talk more about it. I don't want to get ahead of what you're going to ask me, but I wrote all
Yeah.
the songs for my musical, and they came at the most odd time while I was at work, and I had to
Wow.
really dig into my creativity and start writing the songs down while I was at work in the middle of transactions and doing things. I was like, I don't want to forget this because ideas were just flowing, and sometimes that's just when God is just pouring in, and He wants us to really take those creative ideas and use them.
And then you can rest after the work is done. Then you can catch up on your sleep.
Yes, yeah, it comes at odd times, but I'm like, can I just sleep tonight? I don't want to think about nothing. But yeah, it does come sometimes in the most odd periods. So.
Who are some of your inspirations just in the film industry? Is there anyone that right now inspires you, or maybe in the past that really is someone you look up to creatively?
As far as I'm a very big Spike Lee fan. I love Spike
Hmm.
Lee and what he's brought into the industry. School Days is one of my favorite films of all time. I'm definitely inspired by Tyler Perry and his journey of, creativity, and of course in Atlanta and what he's built. I like Ryan Coogler and so many different other, great, people in the industry, Steven Spielberg's. And I'm just a fan of people's journeys, and how they get to where they are now. That inspires me because if you're able to see all of these amazing people, especially people who look like me that has
Hmm.
paved the way and have been successful, we all bring something unique to the table. So it's not competition for me, it's definitely inspiration. But yeah, I'm definitely inspired by them and so many other people who are in the industry, actors and actresses as well.
And I know you started out, you said, in the acting world,
Mhm.
and really sort of that was your first foot really into sort of the business, quote unquote. Do you think that your experience as an actor has helped you when it comes to writing and producing, and in what way?
Yes, especially in directing. I call myself an actor's director because I've seen the other side. And I always encourage people, to try different sides, especially I encourage even more directors to get into acting because, you're able to see it from a different perspective. Even as an actor going over to director, I know when I'm on someone else's set how to give them grace because I know what it's like to be on the other side. So for me, as a director, I try to really um, be have more grace for my actors because sometimes you hear stories, horror stories of how directors are so rude to the actors. And in
Hmm.
the industry, it's like they put the actors at the bottom of the totem pole. But for me, I just really protect my actors and let them see that I'm open to their ideas because I really feel I always say this and I say every production, you as a director and a writer, you draw the picture, but the actors and your crew and team add the colors, right? Because you put the layout up there of what you want, but they come and they add the colors to make it more beautiful, to make it a beautiful project. So for me, I'm open to ideas, I'm open to suggestions of what actors and people come along with me because I'm not one of those type of directors that be like, oh, this is my project and this is how it's gonna go. I have a vision of what I want, and I'll make sure we don't stray away from that vision because sometimes people
Hmm.
bring suggestions. It's like, no, baby, that ain't got nothing to do with what we doing now. But I also try to listen because I believe that God sends people along to be able to help to enhance what you do. Like we were just in a rehearsal last night, and actors and the crew were dropping a lot of suggestive ideas for certain scenes, and I loved it, and I thought it was brilliant, and it gave me a different perspective on things. So just being open minded to the process, being an actor has taught me that when it comes to crossing over to being a director and a writer as well.
And I love that you're like, hey, I'm taking charge, but I want to collaborate with you. Like you've got that balance down. Like,
Right.
okay, yes, I'm leading this, but I want to hear from you and incorporate it. Incorporate your ideas in when they fit and they make sense.
Absolutely.
What Yeah, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced? Just because I know you have a web series that you had out, The Price of Fame, and you had a lot of other projects. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced?
Oh, we'll be on here all day long, but I'll give you. Finances has always been a big thing, especially creators, and when you're in the independent, sometimes you don't really have enough funds to be able to do what you really truly want to do. Even with this musical, we did it in such a short period of time, and God gave us so many great, additions to be able to help us to be able to pull this through, and God is always providing. But I think the biggest thing always is finances, because we really want to, I'm self-funding, all of my projects
Hmm.
I've self-funded and been creative. And it's like, if I would have just had someone to just drop a check in on me, I could have did this and
Right.
did that. But you work with what you have, because I believe that God says we're faithful of a few things, who will make us a rule over many. So some people are just waiting on the sidelines, waiting for the money to come through. When it's like, sometimes you just have to step out on faith and invest in yourself, because if you don't invest in yourself, you can't expect anyone else to want to invest in you. And then
Yes.
another challenge is just, dealing with, different types of personalities. Here in Atlanta, everybody said they want to act right, but you realize that
Hmm.
everybody doesn't have the passion for it. You have people that commit to something, and then they, don't no longer stay committed. I've dealt with that with this musical. You had the, people who try to come in and try to change your vision, or people who try to come in and try to sabotage what you do, because this is a greedy industry, and everybody wants to, come in, and people sometimes don't want to see you win. But those
Hmm.
are challenges that you deal with. A lot of times too, people are jealous of your success, and people are trying to compete with you instead of trying to work and collaborate with you. So you deal with a lot of different things behind the scenes. I've dealt with a lot of betrayal. People who you
Mm.
thought were going to come along and help for the ride, and then they just, stab you in the back. So it's a lot of that in the industry, but you just have to keep pressing forward and realizing the goal at hand and what you came, into this process to do. You had a vision, you had
Hmm.
a passion, and you have to stay the course, because people will try to, discourage you along the way, but it's always, me and God, at the end of the day. So,
Right.
mhm.
And you brought up a good point, because I know Atlanta is like the black mecca of our entertainment.
Yes.
And just how do you stand out with so much talent out there? Like, how do you try to set yourself apart?
Great question. That was actually your the answer to your question was actually what my photographer was telling me the other day. So many people want to do, and be creative, and I think what stands out is people who have a genuine heart, and have a great story and a great message behind what they do. Because let's be honest, everybody has a play that they want to do, right? And sometimes I can
Hmm.
honestly say it, and I'm not saying it to my own horn, but sometimes I look at other people and I'm like, are you really putting something like that out? Like, what is the message? Like, what is the significance? But everybody
Right.
wants to tap into that creativity, but not everybody has a project that really stands in the end of time and really has a message and something that people can attach to. When I look at, my stories and what I'm creating a message that really ministers to people. So you're always going to stand out when you have a positive message, you have a genuine heart, and you have a message that can reach the masses of different people. I look at, communities that are being underserved, and when you're really truly genuine to the art, it's because of your own experiences, right? Having
Hmm.
a brother with special needs and reaching out to the special needs community. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have not seen yet a production that really highlights the special needs community in the musical aspect. So it's just really trying to
Right.
find ways to reach the mass of people, and having a message that people can hold on to and tap into, because that's what's going to make, you memorable and longevity. Because we've
Hmm.
seen it all, but it's like, what do you have that can set you apart from the rest? When I look back on my resume and I'm older, and or long gone, people are gonna look back and be like, oh, well, that's the guy who had that, brilliant musical about special needs, and he really did
Mm-hmm.
something, to change. So, that's what's gonna set me apart from the rest, and really just, highlighting other people along the way, with the Bolden Awards that I have, and with this musical, it's giving an opportunity for other people who haven't really got the spotlight on them to be seen, and I'm honored to do that.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And I want to get into your musical now. This is really exciting. Differently Abled, the musical. I'd love to hear about it. Please tell the listeners, take us back from the beginning. What led you to wanting to create this project? And I know you shared a little bit about your brother, but what's the inspiration? Take us from the beginning.
Yes, I'll give you the short version because I know it's a lot. But yeah, so growing up, I had a brother with special needs, and one of the things that really used to dishearten me was the fact that it was easy for me to make friends, but for him it wasn't. He was in a wheelchair, and kids would, "Why is he in a wheelchair? What makes him different?" And kids would tease what they didn't know, and my brother was teased a lot, and I saw my brother cry and just really have a difficult childhood because he didn't ask to be special needs and be in a wheelchair, but it was what he was given. And it really sat with me over my school years, because I would go to bookstores and I would go to book fairs, and I would never see anything that could relate to me or relate to him. And it stuck with me for years. But when we were after his passing and when we were in COVID, it really I started really missing my brother a lot because I was at home, and sometimes when you're on the go, you're not able to have that time to really grieve and think. But COVID kept us in, and those feelings
Mm-hmm.
came, and I just remember that conversation of, wow, if we could just have a book out here that really can just bring and highlight the special needs community, something I can do in honor of my brother, that would be brilliant. So, the idea came to really write a book that highlight children with special needs. And I wrote about these four children who are going into, the book is them going into middle school, being bullied and teased for being disabled, and really just having a hard time fitting in. And, the holiday season, most kids are, I want toys, I want gadgets, I want the new phone. But what sets these kids apart is that they want to be normal, like Santa, like, make me normal. That's my Christmas wish list for this year. And
Mm-hmm.
they go and take it to the North Pole just so they can have that moment with Santa to grant their request. And their request is granted, and they go on the other side only to discover that they are, the grass isn't always green on the other side, and that they're different because they make a difference. And that's the message that
Mm-hmm.
we send. So I was able to get on 11 Alive News to talk about that in 2021. And this year, well, last year, I was actually trying to gear up for production. And, I was talking to my friends, and I've been told it before, but it really stuck out with me when someone was like, "You're trying to find out what the next production is, but you know what? What about that differently able? It seemed like something you need to be doing more with that." And somebody was
Mm-hmm.
like, "It would make a good musical." And that stuck with me the whole day. I was like, "What?" So we started going into pre-production last year for it, and I pushed forward with it. And then I was like, okay, well, if I do this musical, like, God, where's the music gonna come from? I had to hire someone to come along and do the music.
Mm-hmm.
And during my prayer, God was like, "You're gonna write the music," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Am I hearing something? Was that me or was that?" And God was like, "Trust me." So I guarantee you, like, the next week I was at work, and God was just like dropping songs in my spirit that actually coincides with the musical. The first song was Short Bus, which is one of our theme songs for this musical, because I wanted to take the negative connotation of short bus, because they always, it's the special needs kids,
Mm-hmm.
as the kids who, are the weird kids, they're on that short bus. And I wanted to take it and make it cool again, and
Mm-hmm.
remove that negative stereotype and connotation. So the music just dropped, and I literally, I think I wrote all of my songs within a month, for the production. And I contacted my musical director, ITJ Music, and we put the songs together, and we just been on a full ride. We did the casting in April. I had the cast in July. We started rehearsing, and we've been rehearsing up ever since, and we're 4 weeks away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, you just put this together, but you were always, it was always instilled in you that you wanted to get this message out.
Yeah.
And I just love hearing how, especially, this was your first musical, I'm assuming, that you've done.
Yeah.
So,
My first.
yeah, just being able to say, you know what, I'm not going to just hire people. I'm actually going to do it myself
Yeah.
and to get it done.
I think it made it even more personal for me, because I was able to write the music and make it even more special. And just hearing the songs and be like, oh my God, I was just literally at work and in my room trying to put these songs together and look at how they're flowing now, and the choreography and everything. It's really beautiful, and the message and the actors, their commitment to the characters and the rehearsals. We've had challenges along the way, but we've overcome them, and it's coming together beautifully. And I have assistant director and a stage manager who now has come in, and people have just been flocking to this production because they've just been inspired by the message behind it, and it's nobody but God. So it's a beautiful process.
Well, this is just amazing. And do you feel like this is sort of sparked your interest to do more musicals? Are you now thinking, you know what? I think I might do another one in 30 days. As I know you work fast.
Not 30 days, 'cause I'm like, oh, I'm gonna need some 30 days or more to rest after this is over. But I do see another musical coming, and this has inspired me too to really just get more into the music writing as well, because I didn't realize that I had tapped into that. And even Isaac was like, bro, these songs are brilliant, and the cast and everybody. And we are, of course, looking to tour with this. So we definitely want to take this on the road, because this isn't just for Atlanta to experience.
Yes.
Like, I really want this to experience all over the world, and I really see us going Broadway with this, in New York.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I love it. And you talked at the beginning about inclusivity and being in Atlanta and being able to see people that look like you. And often when we think about inclusiveness, when it's really talked about, we sometimes just talk about race or gender, but talking about from the different aspect of physical abilities, how do you feel this musical will change the ideas and the stereotypes about individuals who may have physical or mental disabilities?
I think it just gives a broad perspective, because even though we have been marketing this as for our special needs, I tell people, all people, like, this is for everybody, because you learn from being on the other side of being an able bodied, and even me, that we have to have more compassion for people who are different from us,
Mhm.
and we've brought in even people from the disabled community who are like disability consultants, and realizing the independence that they desire as well, from people, because a lot of times, not only some of us, we can be compassionate, but we can also be disrespectful sometimes to them, and
Mhm.
not realize like certain words and terms and how we treat them can be offensive, and have
Yes.
more compassion for them and respecting them. But it's also allowing people to see from their eyes, because sometimes we don't realize that they are, human as well, and that they have feelings, and you
Mhm.
may be one of those people who come in the audience and have teased someone or made fun of someone with special needs, but you would come out with a different perspective and say, you know what, they're just like me. They have feelings just like me. And I
Mhm.
also have been speaking about school shootings and things like that, because people have been so overwhelmed with, being bullied and, being teased or
Yes.
ostracized for who they are, that they flip. And I think if we have more compassion, we have more stories like this will really help to get into schools and places to be able to understand, from a creative perspective. Sometimes we can preach and talk all we want, but when people see it, then I think they can get it even more and understand that, hey, we're different, but we make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And just, following up on that, social media is really like a blessing and a curse because it's great. It's a way to get your message out there.
Mhm.
But what are your experiences with social media and just in terms of your thoughts on how it influences, our culture, stereotypes, bullying? What are your thoughts on social media and its impact?
Social media is interesting. I had some
Mm-hmm.
interesting encounters when I had started posting about, the musical. I actually had people from certain, disability communities. It's not meant for everybody, but I have people who kind of, rip the production apart because they feel like, well, who are you? Because you don't have special needs and you're not a part of our community. How dare you write something of this? And I
Mm.
dealt with some things like that, and it, didn't sit too well with me because we sensitive about our stuff and we are creative.
Right.
And I
Yes.
was like, how dare you? But it had me have spark conversations as well with those certain individuals. But social media, sometimes I feel like it gives some people a voice that don't need to have a voice. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's also giving opportunities for people to express themselves and have a voice. If it wasn't for me kind of in the industry I'm in, I don't think I would be as active on social media, but I feel like it really does give a platform for people to see and experience what we have. I think that if it's done in the right way, it's beneficial. But sometimes I just feel like social media can be a little bit much. But it's all about how you use it to really market
Mm-hmm.
stuff and get yourself out there. But I always tell people to be careful what they post on social media because you just always have people watching you. And making sure that your character matches up, and your integrity matches up with the person that you are,
Yes.
applying for that job for, and vice versa. So yeah, use it
Mm-hmm.
wisely.
Yeah, because they'll find those old tweets from
Mm,
2010 and pull them up
yeah,
on you.
yeah.
um, I before we get into where people can find you and get information on social media and other platforms, what advice would you give to an aspiring artist, writer who is just really trying to make an impact, get it into the industry?
My advice is to just really do it. Find what you want to do and do it. I think that's the biggest message I give people. We are so much into our heads sometimes, and we are, so caught up into making things perfect. And that was what me and, my assistant director was talking about, because even though we're putting this music together and we had a limited budget, there's so many different things I want to perfect and make it right, right? But sometimes that's what holds us back because we're not allowing our creativity to be creative, and we're not allowing ourselves to have that first time experience. If I look back on my first stage production versus where I'm at now, I would be like cringing because I'm like, wait a minute, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like that. But you grow over time. But we don't give ourselves enough time and grace to do that because we think that everything has to be perfect in the beginning. So I would tell that inspiring creative to just do it. Get a budget together for what you want to do, write that story, put it together, and take the first step and trust God during the process. But if we're always stuck in our head and saying, well, I'm going to wait until this happens, or I'm going to wait for the right moment, and it's like the right moment might be now. You have to be a selfless individual to understand that someone needs what you have to offer and what you want to put
Mm-hmm.
out there. But they'll never get it if you're always in your head. Someone needs differently able. Someone needs to come on November 22nd and 23rd to experience this production, and it's not about me, but you have to be willing to take the first step and say, you know what, this may not be all that it needs to be as far as perfection, but I can perfect it over
Mm-hmm.
time. But at least I'm putting it out there for someone to be like, wow, this is great, and I want to be a part of this, and then you can perfect it as you go. So just do it.
Yes. Just do it. Just start. It never seems like the right time, right? And the time's
Right.
gonna go by anyway. So might as well just get going and learn and continue to grow. Where can people find you? I want to hear more about where these tours are going to be. If you know yet, let's get that information out. But where can folks find you?
Yes, so folks can find me at Deonte Bolden Productions on Instagram. We're actually in the process of revamping my website because there's so much that's been added to it. But
Mm-hmm.
Differently Able does have a website. So you can go to www.differentlyabledthemusical.com. There you can be able to read more about the musical, the production, and then you can kind of read more about me, who is overall the visionary of this amazing production. So again, www.differentlyabledthemusical.com. So um, for me, on all social media platforms, it's Deonte at Deonte Bolden Productions. And I think the only thing I'm at Deonte Bolden is on Twitter, on there. But yes, at Deonte Bolden Productions, you can find, links to all the different things that I have going on as far as like the musical and Bolden Magazine, the Bolden Awards, and all of those things on there. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Great. And any idea where the tours might be launching, or are you still sort of in the process of figuring that out?
Yeah, so we are. Yeah, we are in the process of actually discussing, our tours. What we are looking at right now is nearby areas before we
Okay.
venture out. So we're looking at Tennessee, uh, South Carolina, North Carolina, those things. But it's still in the works. But right
Yeah.
now, of course, everybody can come out if you're able to come out November 22nd and November 23rd. You can get tickets. So we have a November 22nd at 7 p.m. And then on November 23rd, we have a 2 p.m., which is matinee, and then a 7 p.m., which is our closing night. So if you're in the Atlanta area, come out, be a part of this brilliance. I tell people, you want to be a part of history because this is going to go global, but before it gets there and you're not able to get
Hmm.
any tickets in because they're going to
Yes.
go within 5 seconds, get an experience with it now. So,
Yes. Before it gets to Broadway and you
yeah.
have to have somebody cash after you some money for
Yeah, because you
tickets.
understand, I have a vision that it's going to be where as soon as the tickets go on there, it's going to go quickly because people are just going to be like, I want to be a part of this and I want to experience this. So get on it now.
I love it. And congratulations on all you're doing and all the hard work and the effort that you continue to put in consistently. It's showing off, it's continuing to manifest. And I'm just excited to see what you do next. And we'll love to have you back on in the future because I know you're gonna keep being booked and busy and putting things out there. Is there anything you would like to leave the listeners with before we sign off?
Yes, to be inspired. Don't be ashamed of your story. I think that's another thing I always tell people as well, and I've built my brand on that. To never be ashamed of your story and what you've been through. Realize everything that you have experienced and gone through is really to help to, create a creative path for you. Whether it's writing a book or a story or a film, use that. Sometimes, often in life, people are telling us to be ashamed of what we've been through, if we've been through abuse or if
Hmm.
we've been, ostracized or whatever those things, use that as one of your strengths and your power, superpower, to be able to empower and uplift other people because that's what we've done. And I just want to thank you as well for
Thank
Miss
you.
Tamea, for Ryan, for giving me the platform to be able to come on and share. You were one of the people who reached out to me when I was out there posting. It was like, I'm trying to get on some platforms to promote. So
Yes.
I just appreciate you for taking our time on your platform to be able to highlight someone like me. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. And love to talk to you again in the future. And listeners, stay tuned. We have more episodes on the way.